feel our feelings, to learn to stay, to have the intention to lean in and to be with, not to run away, to keep practicing coming back into our bodies and breathing with and bringing kindness to what's here. Feel your feelings. Now that's a nice thing to say. You know, what we resist persists. Go ahead and feel your vulnerability. And it's really, really hard. And the reason it's hard is that we have a huge amount of conditioning when our feelings are difficult to do anything but feel them. One friend tonight was saying how powerful the question was from a therapist, what are you running away from? One sage put it this way, what are you unwilling to feel? So we run away, and we have different ways of trying to run away. For many of us, the big way that we try to run away from vulnerability is to in some way ignore it or pretend it's not there, and we get very habituated to that. And I heard a story, kind of an illustrative story, a woman, top executive in a New York financial firm. So usually she takes a limo to work or whatever, but this day, because of the weather, she had to take a bus. And so she figures she'll take a bus and catch up on the news. But turns out she ends up listening to music instead on the bus. She has a problem, and this is really a vulnerable one. She has a lot of gas, and she's not sure what to do about it. She's embarrassed to release it to fart because, anyway, here's what happens. The music's really loud, so she decides she's going to fart to the beat of the music. This is to prevent anybody. Anyway, so she gets to her stop, and she's leaving the bus, and everyone is looking at her. And it was only after she got out and stepped off that she realized she had her headphones on. We have our ways of trying to protect ourselves. But one of the big ways, I'm going to let that one go. Let it pass, okay? So one of the big ways that we try to avoid vulnerability is aggression and judgment. When we feel bad, we try to blame something. And by the way, this is wired into us. To survive, we're trying to seek the cause of what's making us feel bad. And so the cause is either you're doing something wrong or I'm doing something wrong. So we blame. We also try to dominate. We try to control things so we won't feel vulnerable. This is a quote from Desmond Tutu, 1984 Nobel Peace Prize winner, Cape Town, South Africa. He tells us the following. He says, there's a story fairly well known about the missionaries when they came to Africa. They had the Bible, and we, the natives, had the land. They said, let us pray, and we dutifully shut our eyes. And when we opened them, why, no, they had the land, and we had the Bible. So I smile, and it's also tragic. There's a tragedy that happens when we aren't able to stay with our vulnerability. We need to dominate and conquer and prove, and we create more separation and more violence. Stay with your feelings. We need to do it individually, and I'm going to speak in a moment about culturally, but stay with our feelings. And why? A lot of people say, if I'm feeling bad, why stay with it? Well, one thing is that our emotions are intelligent, and every one of them, if you listen, has a message to tell us. Okay? So our anger, we need our anger. Our anger tells us there's some obstacle to something that really matters to us. Our fear tells us that there's something really threatening. Our grief tells us that there's a loss that we need to be able to touch into. They inform us of our unmet needs. I think of it sometimes, the child in the womb and the pressure against the child, and the feelings that child has when they feel the pressure of contractions during labor. Well, that's a message to work with those contractions and get out of there. We need it. We need our emotions. They move us, okay? So that's one piece. And also, by learning to stay present with our emotions, to feel them, we discover the presence, the awareness and space that's large enough to be with them and have some balance and freedom. There's no way you'll learn to ride and be with the weather systems, the inner weather systems, unless you practice presence with them. But there is a real profound gift. In the moments of mindfully being with, there is a space that's larger than the emotions that you can rest in. And this is why I sometimes use the language of the fearless heart. Doesn't mean there's no fear. It just means we've discovered that heart space that's big enough for the fear, so we don't suffer from the fear. It's a current in a larger sea of our beingness. So we learn to practice with and discover that presence, and then from that presence, we can respond intelligently to what's happening. So a lot of our training, a lot of our practice in these mindfulness and self-compassion classes has to do with being with the emotions we run from, being with the pain we contract against.